Good morning, guys, and happy Wednesday. Obviously, I sound a little bit different this week. My allergies have flared up, and I wasn't able to get ahead of them. So it seems like I dropped an octave in my singing voice this week, which is great, but it doesn't stay around for long. It's not as glamorous as it may sound. I think we all mess up sometimes when it comes to allergies or something like that, right? We have this course of medication that we're prescribed to take by our doctors, and it's supposed to keep the symptoms at bay or even heal an infection or something like that. And we take just enough to start feeling better, and then we think that our bodies can handle it from the rest of the way, right? We can get it from there. And then a few days later, after we stop, we're actually worse than we were to start with. And that's why our doctors tell us to always finish the entire course of the medicine. I've heard that so many times, right? To make sure that we don't mess it up and end up worse than we started. I have that happen about 3 times a year thanks to seasonal allergies since we moved here to Savannah. And I notice some stuffiness, right? And I ignore it for a few days or a week or so. And then all of a sudden I wake up like this, all locked down and feeling rotten. And then I have to fight hard to get back to normal. If only I would finish the course of allergy meds as they are intended to be taken, and more than likely I wouldn't have these kind of weeks that pop up all the time. So I know that you guys are wondering how in the world I'm going to bring a spiritual connection out of my allergies, but I promise you guys it is there. When we have medicine like allergy meds or even antibiotics or something like that, it's important that we take the full course. If we take just enough to feel better, we quickly fall back into a worse state. In our spiritual lives, there are many people that get just enough Jesus to make them feel better, but then they stop growing in their faith. They're saved, but then they remain spiritually immature. And this should not be the case. It should not be the way that we handle our faith. We should finish the course in developing a strong and a deep faith. That is the kind of faith that will allow us to live a powerful life for the kingdom of God, right? So in the book of Hebrews, I was reading chapter 5, and actually this is what it says. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you, again, the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food, for everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. Now, the author was writing to a people that should have been further along in their maturity, but instead had taken just enough to feel better and then stopped. So instead of being ready to take on the leadership roles that they should have been ready for, that they were preparing for, they were still needing the support of a new believer. They still needed people around them to teach them the basics. Only you can determine where your spiritual maturity is, and none of us will ever really reach maturity on this side of heaven, but we also can't sit in our immaturity and think that we're going to get better or more mature, right? We need to be sure that we give time for spiritual disciplines in our busy schedules so that we mature in our understanding of God's grace, and then we practice the application of that grace towards other people. We need to make sure that our head knowledge of spiritual things becomes wisdom that is lived out daily in how we interact with other people. Then we will grow, we will mature, and we will fulfill the call that God has placed on each of our lives. Guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. We will see you all real soon.